Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. The three roots are Lobha, Dosa, Moha, usually translated as greed, hatred, and delusion. You've seen this Tibetan image of the wheel of life with the various concentric rings. We've got a few versions around here. There's one in the library. I don't think there's one in this building. And the centermost ring will be a rooster, a pig, and a snake chasing each other around in a circle. And that represents the motive force right at the hub of the wheel, driving everything around. Those represent the three roots. The snake being dosa, or ill will, aversion. The rooster being desire, lobha, and the pig being ignorance, moha. The idea of the three roots is taking the analysis of what's wrong with samsara and what's wrong with the human psyche. It's taking it down to the ultimate level. That's the basic foundation of becoming, are these, and therefore of all suffering, are these three roots, three root impulses in the mind. Of these three, moha, delusion or ignorance, is the most fundamental. But let's deal with the other two first, lobha and dosa. Like a lot of Pali words, they're hard to translate exactly because the English words are all a bit too specific. This is the most general forms of the types of defilement that is either a moving towards, a desiring of an object, or a rejection, a revulsion of an object. And it includes all the other subsidiary defilements and all the nuances. But it's a very general concept. And the two, lobha and dosa, are, in some ways, they're just two sides of the same coin. The mind is not satisfied or content with things as they are and wants either more or less of some phenomena. But they do have different flavors, different effects on the mind, and they play out in different ways, and they actually lead to different destinies. And there are different secondary effects of these roots. Of the two, in the broadest general sense, dosa, ill will, would have the worst effects, the worst consequences. Dosa plays out as everything from irritation, dislike, anger, hatred, rage. There's many different nuances of the way the mind expresses this negativity. And it always drags the consciousness down and can incline the mind to lower states of consciousness and a lower rebirth. Actions that are motivated by this root of dosa are always going to be unskillful. They're always going to lead to an increase in suffering and the creation of negative karma. And if frequently indulged in and made habitual, they can lead to lower rebirth in various kinds of highly unpleasant conditions in Naraya hell or as an asura or other kinds of demonic sort of states. Lobha, greed, on the other hand, is a very powerful fuel for becoming. But it's here we need to clarify exactly what's meant by Lobha. It includes sense desire in all its different forms, but it also includes the desire for being, desire for becoming. So it's a very fundamental impulse towards the desire in the most primordial sense, the desire to experience an object. Now, this is Lobha. Of course, it plays out as all kinds of greediness and sense desire and indulgence. It should be understood, though, this is different than dosa because Lobha leads to, they equally both lead to becoming and are fuel for rebirth. Lobha is not necessarily leading on to a lower rebirth. The devas in the sensual heavens experience all kinds of sensual delight, and birth there is a result of having made merit in the human existence. But it can not ever lead out of becoming. It can't lead to liberation. So Lobha is not necessarily a cause of bad karma. It can be if one does illicit actions motivated by desire, but it's not in itself necessarily bad karma, but it does make karma, which means it does lead to rebirth. And if it's sensual desire, it can lead only to rebirth in the sensual desire plane, meaning the lowest tier of samsara. Consciousness can't transcend that boundary as long as it's caught in sense desire. The higher planes of consciousness in the human existence, represented by jhana, or in the cosmic existence, represented by the Brahma gods, they have transcended sense desire, and when you're in jhana, you're temporarily transcended sense desire, but you still have lobha, you still have the desire for experience, the desire to be. No? So that's a more fundamental desire than sense desire. It underlies it. And for liberation from samsara, for realization of the unconditioned, all forms of the three roots have to be eradicated. The third root is really the first root, the fundamental primary root is moha, which is delusion or ignorance. And again, this is the most general possible term. And it said, for example, there are two flavors or two variants of moha, not knowing and knowing wrongly. So one is pure ignorance, is the darkness of mind, not knowing, avijja. That's probably the fundamental root. In the formula of the dependent origination, in the terminology of that system, it's referred to as avijja, not knowing. And avijja is the cause of action, karmic action. It's like we're stumbling in the dark because we don't know. We thrash around and knock things over and cause trouble. This is avijja is the cause of sankhara. The other form of ignorance is delusion. It's being attached to false view, micchaditthi, having confused ideas of seeing wrongly. One is not seeing and the other is seeing wrongly. And in particular, as mentioned, the vipalasas, the perversions of mind, whereby one does not see or understand the three characteristics. So one sees permanence, substantiality, and perfection or satisfaction in phenomena. Rather than seeing clearly as seeing the three characteristics, seeing the impermanence, imperfection, and most importantly, the emptiness, the voidness of phenomena. So it's the misapprehension, particularly of seeing substantiality, this delusion. The other variant of moha is either ignorance, complete dullness, not knowing, or delusion, knowing wrongly. Another passage in the Visuddhimagga distinguishes the two kinds of moha a little differently. It says that the one is associated with uncertainty, vicikiccha, and the other is associated with agitation, uddhacca. So there's either the uncertainty, the dullness of not knowing, or the agitation caused by false views. Uddhacca is also called restlessness. It manifests as a restlessness in meditation, inability to be still. And this moha is the single primary root. The other two are in a way reflections of that or effusions out of that. Ignorance is the last to go, the last of the defilements. In a attainment of arahanthood or Buddhahood, the last thing to go is ignorance. There's a very fascinating Dhamma talk by Ajahn Mahabua that's been translated and published in English as Arahata Magga Arahata Pala. And you can find it on the internet. I've seen it's been posted. This is one of the last talks that he gave in his life. And in it he speaks quite openly about his experience and his attainment of arahantship. Arahata Magga, Arahata Pala is the path and fruit of arahantship. And he talks about his meditation for a long time. He said, I dwelt in the clear, brilliant light, and I thought that was the end. But he came to realize that the clear, brilliant light was itself ignorance. It was avidya. It was the most primordial, or depending on your perspective, either the last or the first manifestation of avidya. It was itself the expression of that ignorance, and he saw through it and realized the unconditioned nibbana. So that, in terminology of his discourse, a brilliant light is like the first vibration into becoming or manifest existence. So in a sense, going the other direction, you could say it's the purest form of existence. But it's still existence. It's still outside of the unconditioned. The other two roots, Dosa and Lobha, are ended by the anagami. It's the third stage of awakening. But then there still remains ignorance. There still remains avidya, which is only overcome by the arahant. So it's the last defilement to go. It's the last imperfection. It's the root of all becoming. There's another set of roots that are the opposites. So sometimes they talk about 6 roots, because there's the 3 unwholesome roots, Lobha, Dosa, Moha. There's also the 3 wholesome roots, which are their opposites, and they're expressed as negatives. Alobha, Adosa, Amoha. The A prefix is a negative in Pali. This is significant, I think. I know people sometimes, encountering that, they ask or wonder, why are they expressed negatively? Instead of saying, non-hatred, why can't you say kindness or love? Instead of saying non-ignorance, why don't you say wisdom? But I think that the Buddha's use of language was always very precise and careful. And I think by expressing them as negatives, it implies that that is a natural state of mind. That the mind is fundamentally pure, intrinsically pure, and it's defiled by Lobha, Moha, Dosa. And when those are not present, when there is non-hatred, non-greed, non-delusion, then the mind expresses its intrinsic natural nature, natural wisdom and love and generosity, shine forth. And there's no hindrance to that. There's also in the Visuddhimagga, there's a section discussing personality types by which root is most evident or prevalent. And there are 6 types corresponding to the 6 roots roughly. There's the greed type, the faith type, the hatred type, the intelligent type, the ignorant type, and the speculative type. So there's the greed type is paired with the faith type, because in a positive unfoldment of someone who has Lobha as their primary defilement, when they're undeveloped spiritually and they're expressing that root, it plays out as greediness or sensuality, self-indulgence. But then if they begin to unfold spiritually, it manifests as faith. People who have this nature, they unfold through faith. They like devotional practice, and they do well with it. It benefits them, right? Like chanting and tending to an altar, and all those kind of effusions, kind of heart effusions. This is the kind of practice that they are drawn to. The hatred type, one whose chief root defilement is dosa, when they're undeveloped, they are nasty kind of people. They express anger and ill will, irritation. They're grumpy. This is their expression of their being, and they unfold primarily through the intellect. They take an interest in penetrating the nature of reality. I think it's like you could say that that impatience that's inherent in dosa becomes transferred to ignorance itself, and they become impatient and irritated with not knowing, and they want to push through and understand. The ignorant type has the variant of the speculative type, which corresponds to not knowing and knowing wrongly. The ignorant type is just dull, but the speculative type, they can actually be quite intelligent, but their minds tend to wander and spin all kinds of wild ideas and theories and endlessly proliferating. The ignorant type, when they unfold spiritually, they tend to manifest psychic powers. And I think the reason for that, this is my theory about that, is that if an ordinary person has some little glimmering of a psychic experience, like they start to read somebody's mind, or they have some premonition of the future, their tendency is to dismiss it as being, oh, it's just my imagination. Forget about it. It's not real. But the ignorant person, they can't tell dream from reality from imagination, and it's all one. So there's no block to them unfolding those things when they start to manifest. And it said that a difference in practice between the ignorant type and the speculative type is the choice of a location for their meditation hut. The dull type should have someplace high up with a good view to expand their mind and open them up. But that would be exactly wrong for a speculative type, because their mind would just get caught in all the details and lost in the phenomena. They're better off in a dark cave without any sense stimulation. And there's said to be different ways of determining somebody's nature. One of them is to wake them up suddenly from a sleep. If they wake up quickly, spring up, out of bed quickly and get on with things, that's a sign they're the greed type. If they wake up angry, like, what are you doing? What are you bothering me for? That's the anger type. And if they wake up dull and confused and going, where am I? Then they're the dull type, the ignorant type. And there's a whole bunch of these kind of diagnostics, like watching someone sweeping. They're thinking, when they say sweeping, they're thinking of as they do in Asia, sweeping a path with a big broom, sweeping the leaves off the path. The greed type will sweep very methodically and carefully, and anger type will be rough and he'll miss patches. And the confused type is just the hopeless. They're just sort of a little bit here, a little bit there, totally, totally without method. When I was in Thailand one time at the tea time, we had these candies. It's a Thai candy. They're called sugats. They're chewy, little fruit chewies, and they're wrapped in wax paper. And it occurred to me watching everybody dealing with their wrappings that you could probably categorize them. But some of the monks were, after they unwrapped the candy, they would carefully fold up the squares and keep a little pile, neat little pile. That's the greed type, you know. Some of them would just bundle them up into little balls and toss them. That was like the anger type. And some would just drop them and they just hithered there anywhere, the ignorant type. So I think you can see like a lot of little behavioral things in people to determine. And these are, of course, ideal or abstract types. Everybody who's not an arhat is going to have some degree of all three roots. There's going to be some balance. You're going to have some people that are primarily greed types who still have a considerable amount of anger. But it's kind of ideal types to give you an idea. And as for meditations, the greed type really needs to work on diminishing their attachment to sensuality, and they should do like 32 parts of the body or corpse meditation. They're good meditations for those people to work on their defilement and their particular obsessions and defilements. The anger type should do loving kindness and Brahma Viharas generally. The ignorant type needs to clarify their view, so they should be making an effort to overcome their ignorance with study and with methodical kind of insight practice. I'll say that at least as far as those first two go, Lobha and Dosa types, there's often a lot of resistance to wanting to do the meditations that are appropriate. The anger types really don't want to do loving kindness meditation. They have a lot of resistance to it. People that are full of metta have good open hearts. They love doing metta meditation. And of course, it doesn't harm them. It's good for anybody to do, but they don't really need it as much as the anger type really needs to do metta meditation, but they have a resistance to it. It's not the most strongest reason, but I think it might help. Again, I'm always griping about the translations, but calling metta loving kindness, I think, turns a lot of people off that are, that sort of have fairly strong dosa root. It sounds sort of soft and sappy, loving kindness. Whereas metta, it's not really that anyway. It's benevolence or well-wishing. Likewise, the sensual types don't like to do 32 parts of the body or corpse meditation. And it's really something that they could benefit a lot from. Sensuality directed to the body arises because of unwise attention to the signs and particulars. That's a partial view, right? You're looking at a human body and you're focusing on aspects and bits that you like, right, that are attractive or appealing, but not on phlegm and pus and blood and urine and bone marrow. You know? Whereas doing 32 parts of the body gives you that more holistic view and breaks up that sensual attraction. Even more so, corpse meditation is even more effective. And it's kind of difficult to do in the traditional Orthodox way if you need an actual corpse. It's kind of hard to find, but you can do it imaginatively. And you should take advantage if you see like a dead animal. You should take advantage of, particularly if it's like half rotten. You should stop and contemplate it for a few moments and see the disintegration of the body. But then Anapanasati, meditation on breathing, is the one the Buddha said is good for everybody. All types benefit from doing Anapanasati. There's no possible overdoing of it. So I think I'll stop there. That's a discourse on the three roots: Lobha, Moha, Dosa.